gradually then we will be able to overcome all this other step by step, and then overcome suffering. So now that way, then we recognize the karma cause and effect, and then we try to overcome that by, of course, step by step. So the first step is by trying to have develop less attachment to oneself, have more respect, more loving kindness, compassion towards others, able to exchange oneself to others, seeing that how one experiences or how one wishes for happiness and dislikes suffering. So same way other beings also are the same. So that way, then when one truly recognizes this, one truly contemplates on oneself and how one really wants to be happy, wants to be free from suffering. And then when one genuinely develops confidence in that, and then one exchanges that with others, and then one will be able to see that others, how much they also wish for that, and then others are so many there, and one is just you here. So therefore, when one develops that kind of genuine respect, loving kindness, compassion for others, then one's strong, this self-grasping of individualistic thought decreases gradually. And so when that happens, then that is so through that, then gradually even once all the negative emotions gradually lose its power. So that way one gradually develops insight into this. So that way, then gradually when our action becomes virtuous, and then through that, then we accumulate good merit. And through good merit, then we gradually develop, good karma. Then as through good karma, then we experience happiness. Then through this kind of then merit, one accumulates merit, and then through one's practice, and then gradually one develops insight into the non-substantial, reality of this, self or this I, or reality of all that, holding on to things as real. And then when that happens, then there is no more accumulation of karma. Then you go beyond karma. And then when you go beyond karma, then there is no samsara. And when there is no samsara, no more suffering. You go beyond suffering or no suffering. So that is, of course, the final. Or of course not the final. That is called nirvana. But enlightenment is above that. So nirvana is free from the cycle of karma. Cycle of karma. And so when one is free from the cycle of karma, and then one attains the state of nirvana, great peace, also known as the great peace. And then from there, but you are not completely enlightened. You remain in a state of meditative state where you experience no more no more suffering, because no more karma. But you're still not completely enlightened. And then one remains in that, and then when one, it is said that Buddha, the Buddha, one of the Buddha will manifest, and then lead you to enlightenment, and then one will attain enlightenment that way. So this is normally the nirvana that we talk about. But if we have bodhicitta to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all mother sentient beings, then with that kind of a bodhicitta, then we will not have this kind of nirvana. We will not be stuck in the state of nirvana. We will attain complete enlightenment without getting stuck in the state of nirvana. So that is that is a different approach or way. Of course, arhat is arhat reached the nirvana, but we the Vajrayana practitioners, through our method of practice, then we attain a complete realization. So now, of course, here karma cause and effect in brief. Then we do contemplative meditation, and then we see or we analyze and see that everything that one experiences, whether it's happiness or whether it's suffering, sadness, we see that we contemplate on it and see that it does not happen just like that. Everything happens with a cause and condition. So this cause and condition is the karma, the karma cause and condition. So through this cause and condition, then one creates the karma. So that karma, when one experiences, that is the karma, the experience of the happiness or suffering. So when one sees that, then one recognizes that the negative, non-virtuous actions then lead to suffering. Virtuous actions lead to happiness, happy kind of experience. And so therefore, then recognizing this, and then we try to inculcate, cultivate positive action. We try to develop a habitual pattern which is positive, and try to remove a habitual pattern which is negative. So by doing that, then even the most simplest, smallest action, virtuous action also, one must try and develop, and not not overlook by saying this is small. I will do more substantial. This is too small to really do anything. I don't. This is so that way, without even looking at the size of the virtuous action, one must develop a good habit through that. Good pattern of action. As it is said, every drop of water makes the ocean. So same way. So one must develop this kind of habitual pattern, positive habitual pattern. It is said, that no matter how powerful or how bad another person is, they don't have the power to really make you kind of suffer, kind of ultimately, of course, ultimately suffering or no suffering is, it is beyond that. But even relatively, nobody else has the power to really make you suffer. If you don't give them chance to make you suffer. So how do you not give them, chance to make you suffer? Is by not reacting to their kind of, certain action. If they do certain things, if you react in a opposite, in a more negative way, then you create the conditions to suffer. But instead of doing that, if you react or if you create a positive, reaction, no matter what, and then you create a, positive karma. So that way, and then it is said, nobody has the power to really make you suffer. It is you yourself who has the power to create your own karma. Nobody can create your karma. It is you who has the full power to create your karma. So through your karma, you will experience happiness or suffering. So as we all want to experience happiness and not suffering, so we must create good karma, and that is in our hand. One might think, how can that be? When somebody says bad thing to me, when somebody tries to do bad things to me, naturally I will get hurt. Naturally I will, suffer. So how can how can you say others cannot hurt you? So you might think that way. But it is very much possible. The past great masters used to practice that way. The ones who are really creating bad actions towards you, trying to hurt you, that is, they used to practice and see them as your even more kind of look at them as a teacher to you even more. They used to have that kind of mindset. Instead of getting angry, looking bad at them, when they do something bad to you, it hurts your ego, it hurts your anger, it brings in all those kind of things. Then it is bringing those negative emotions in you. It is bringing out the bad qualities in you. Then you are able to recognize what is your level, whether you are able to really overcome your, these negative emotions or not. So number one, they are like your teacher. They help you to, then they are a source of patience. Practice of your patience. So when you are able to, otherwise, if there is no one to practice your patience, how do you practice? Practice of patience, and then they become the source for you to practice patience. Then they also become the source for you to practice loving kindness, compassion. These people do such things not because they are wise or but actually because of their ignorance. They don't recognize that by doing such actions they are creating negative karma for themselves. So through that negative karma, you will not get their negative karma. They themselves will experience the negative karma that they create. So when you see that, you develop even more loving kindness, compassion towards such beings. So they become source for you to develop loving kindness, compassion also. So in so many ways, the way you look at it, the way, if you are able to practice in the right way or look at it in a right frame of mind, then actually, these things cannot harm you. In fact, it turns into one's practice. It turns into one's advantage. So that is how the past masters used to practice. So it is not something that is impossible and just talk, just empty words. Because masters, previous practitioners have done that and have managed to, overturn one's outlook into such positive outlook, and benefit out of it. So therefore, it is very much possible. So one must practice that way. So starting from little things, from small experiences, small examples, then one can develop such practice. So in this in the third karma cause and effect, and then one tries to cultivate the positive action or virtuous action, and tries to eliminate or overcome negative or non-virtuous actions. So one does that. So one tries to cultivate such habitual pattern in oneself. In the worldly Dharma, we say, in the worldly sense, we say that we mustn't take nonsense from anybody. We must stand for ourselves. We say this, isn't it? So that is how normal people think and do. But if you do that, then you are entertaining this, ego. So how much can you do? You are making it more possible for this to get hurt. How many you will keep doing this? Till how long will you try this? So all the time you are little things can hurt you easily. Little things can affect you easily. So that way we cannot sustain the level of happiness in that terms. But in the other way, if you are able to let go of this, self, care, this self-attachment, and start to develop, respect and care for others in place of yourself, and then there is no, kind of need of trying to take care of oneself all the time. The more others are helping themselves, the more you are happier. So when that happens, everybody trying to help themselves all the time. So when they do that, then you are no more hurt. Somebody try to take advantage of you, you are happy to let them take. So you will be hurt or you will suffer when it hurts you. So supposing somebody try to take advantage of you and then you react to that, then you are hurt. So that taking advantage is applicable, the word. But when they do something to you and you don't see that as in taking advantage of you, but rather you see it as as a chance to help them out, no more of self thinking that they are taking advantage of me, then there is no more of getting hurt. So that way, one can overturn, and not get hurt and get advantage out of it. So that way, then one is no one can hurt one through any way. Because no matter what anybody does, there is no, this base of this I to get hurt anymore. So therefore, then that is how genuine peace or genuine, happiness comes from within. So that is why people who have more care for others, think of others more than themselves, do more work for others, so those people are genuinely more happy people. They are more open people. They have less fear. They have more confidence, because of these reasons. They are not scared. They say something, they are more genuine, open people. They will say something, but with genuineness. They are not afraid, should I say this or not? Will people think I'm not a bad person if I say this? Or, how will I lose my face if I say like this or like that? So normal people have so many confusions in their head. They have so many complications. So they are always having fear and doubt and all this. And all this is, suffering. But when you are able to open up that way, care for others, so genuinely caring for others, you will see. So genuinely caring for others, genuinely saying something, then you are open, you are confident. There is nothing to hide. So people who are of that level, we can see. People like in the past, like Mother Teresa, in the present, like His Holiness Dalai Lama. So these kind of people, they're very open. They just and they don't have anything to hide. So that comes when you are able to build from within. This genuine loving kindness, compassion towards others, and less self-attachment. So these are very powerful practice. That ultimately, or at the end of the day, will benefit you. So it is a win-win situation for everybody. So now, so that way, the first reflection, which is on precious human life, and we know, what kind of a life we have. Just not ordinary life, but a precious one, really precious human life, with which we can achieve so much. But if we don't reflect on the second reflection of impermanence, then we might develop, kind of ego. We might also waste this human life, just here or there, though we know it is precious. So in order to not, have such, then we reflect on the second reflection, which is impermanence. So when we reflect on the impermanence, we know we have such a precious thing as this precious human life, but we know it is impermanent. Everything is impermanent. So therefore, we can lose it any time. We will definitely lose it. And then there's no certainty of the time when we will lose it. And there's no certainty of how we will lose it. So therefore, we know it's impermanent. So therefore, we develop great urgency to make use of this precious human life that we have been able to achieve. So then now with the third reflection, which is the karma cause and effect, and then this though it is impermanent, we might think, if it's impermanent, so what is there? Like as I said yesterday, people who don't understand, and they take their own lives thinking that there's no more. They end their life, all solution is finished. All solution solved, all problems solved. They're just taking their life, they think it's over, and finish free from the suffering. But it doesn't work that way. So when we see the cause condition, the karma cause condition, we see it is not over. So therefore, then we recognize and realize what is the way or conditions to achieve happiness, and what are the cause and conditions through which one experiences suffering. So we recognize that. So through recognizing this, then we develop, we do things which will develop, which will create happiness. So now, then we recognize that if we, do good things, then we have happiness, and we do bad things, we have suffering. So we recognize this. Now again, then we might just want to have, kind of good things in life. So for this we work. So like we want to be wealthy, we want to be healthy, we want to be famous. So for these purposes, then we know we must create good karma. So we, create good karma, and then be satisfied with that. So that is also shortcoming. So in order to avoid such shortcoming, then we, the fourth reflection, which is the shortcomings of the samsara. Then we recognize that as long as we are in the samsara, no matter what, we are not free from the circle of suffering. So we want to be free from suffering completely. So we must understand what is suffering, what is samsara. Samsara is known as the ocean of suffering. So as long as we are in this samsara, then we are not free from the suffering. So therefore, suffering can be categorized into three kinds of suffering. So if we understand these three kinds of suffering, then we know what is suffering. So for example, if we first kind of suffering, we call it as the suffering of suffering. So the suffering of suffering means we always experience this all the time. So for example, you get sick. So when you get sick, you suffer from whatever. First of all, you are suffering from that sickness, and then in that sickness itself, again you have pain through that sickness. So that is one suffering on top of another. Then also, like for example, say animal. First suffering is they are born as animal. So they have so many shortcomings as an animal. So that is suffering. They are born in the suffering. And then on top of that, then another suffering, which is people take advantage of them, and then no freedom. They are made to work for them, and they are killed for food, with so many things. So that is another suffering. So suffering of suffering, suffering on top of suffering. So suffering with another suffering, suffering leading to suffering. Then, in our day-to-day life, we want to achieve something, so we are unable to achieve that, then there's suffering because we are unable to achieve that. So, and then through that, again, there's stress, that stress is developed because you are unable to achieve that. And so all this, example of suffering. So normally the suffering that we associate with as suffering, so most of them come under this category. Then there's another kind of suffering which is called, the Jurviduma, which means the change, suffering of change. So suffering of change means the name itself saying change. So because of change, one might think it is happiness, but it is not permanent. It changes, and when it changes to suffering. It is very interesting, if you really examine, contemplate on your, day-to-day things, everything, things that we think gives us happiness, brings us happiness, the relative things, they all change, and then when that happens, it gives us suffering. So all things change to suffering. For example, very simple example, like let's say clothes. So supposing you go to, somebody give you a, let's say a jacket, and you don't like this jacket from the beginning, then you don't care, isn't it? If somebody take it away, steal it away, you don't care. If you get it or not get it, you don't care. But supposing somebody gives you a jacket which is really nice, the color that you really like, the shape or the design that you really like, the name of the company that you really like, and then fits you perfectly, and then you develop a great kind of joy in this jacket. And then so you keep it with great care. And then imagine if somebody suddenly steals that jacket, then it gives you much more suffering. This thing that you thought gave you so much happiness change into more suffering. Then even if nobody steals the jacket, it is impermanent. The jacket one day will become old and you cannot wear it anymore. So when that happens, you have great sadness, that unable to first of all find another one like that, and then you care so much for this jacket, but it cannot serve you anymore. So there is suffering. So even this thing has it could not give you a lasting happiness. It changed into suffering. Then also, for example, a person who doesn't have their own place or stay with somebody, sharing with somebody, like this. Of course, they have certain level of they have to pay rent and all that. But when you share with person or when you stay with your family or something like that, then the level of its kind of suffering is in that level. But then you think that I must get my own apartment, I must get my own house, and this will give me great joy, great happiness. Then you work and then you get a very nice, expensive house or big house, and you think that will give you happiness. So, but the minute you buy a big house, a nice, everything, then you start getting bills. Bills of the electricity, bills of water bill, all kind of bills. And then every time the month ends, you have a big problem. You always dread for the month to end. Because there's so many bills coming. And then all that is not easy. You have to pay all that. So there's lots of it leads to so many extra worries. So that is all suffering. So something that you thought would give you happiness change into suffering. So anything, if you see around anything, everything is subject to change. So now you understand, what is the second suffering. So even things that we think is, kind of happiness, that gives us happiness. So as long as it's relative, then it's subject to change. So change. Then when that happens, then one experiences suffering. Then now the third kind of suffering is called all-pervasive suffering. So all-pervasive suffering is, as long as it, gives us this dualistic, as long as it is a dualistic, then there's this suffering. Though we do not recognize there's suffering. Because as long as there is dualistic perception, then it limits us from recognizing or realizing the ultimate. So then that is one form of suffering also. As long as there is I, then there is you. As long as there is I and you, there is the base of suffering. So it is suffering. So that way, then if we see, there are three kinds of suffering, and everything in samsara, it is not beyond these three kinds of suffering. It is in these three kinds of sufferings. So as long as we are in the samsara, then we are not free from these sufferings. So now, whether you are born in the most powerful, happy family, when one's karma or the merit to experience that extinguishes, then again one is born in a lower state. So again, in a lower state, if one accumulates karma, merit that way, then again one will be born in a higher kind of birth. So that way, one keeps going round and round. Sometimes experiencing a little bit of happiness, again that turning into suffering, and then again born in the lower realm, so going round and round in the samsara. So that is called samsara. Korwa, we say in Tibetan. Kor means to go round. So going round and round in this cyclic, circle of life and death. So when one truly, reflects on these, then one will genuinely develop genuine wish to be free from this, because we see all this is suffering. So genuinely want to be free of this. And how to be free of this? Then the Dhamma is the only path through which one can truly overcome this. So we develop great urgency in practicing the Dhamma. We develop great joy in practicing the Dhamma. So now that is why then we reflect on the four reminders. So it develops true motivation. It develops a genuine wish and urge, and it develops joy in one's practice of the Dhamma. So it truly develops all this in oneself. So therefore, it is the most important preliminary practices. One of the most important practices, preliminary practice of the Dhamma. So I can say this because it was very beneficial for me. When I was young, of course, I was in the monastery, so I had some kind of teachings on these. But of course, I was very young, so not much teaching, but a little bit of such teachings. Then I was taken out of the monastery, sent to school, and lived a normal layman's life till university level. So in the university, when I was going through, then of course we all experience different experiences, and then we wonder what is life and all this. So and then it was fortunate enough for me, it's my karma, and that I somehow, I don't know, came across a book which was on these four topics, the four reminders. And somehow the book was very, I'm not a good reader, so I like small books, I don't like thick books, so this book was thin, yet, so I took it to read. And when I read that book, it really got me into the book. When I started, I just could not keep the book down. And then it really made sense. And it really helped me. And I started reflecting on my life, and the book had whatever the teaching the Dhamma of these 4 reminders made so much sense practically. And then when I tried to reflect on them with the little knowledge that I had, it really helped me in my in my life. And then of course it got stronger, and then here I am genuinely wanting to practice the Dhamma. So through experience I can say that these are really a must and beneficial for one to truly develop joy in the Dhamma, to develop confidence in the Dhamma, and to develop genuine motivation for one to carry through the Dhamma. And so one must reflect on these. It is very, very important. Okay. So now you must, as I said yesterday, the most important is try to cultivate the some shamatha meditation in your day-to-day life. And then once one does that, then one will develop gradually peace within oneself, and then even one will develop genuine devotion, confidence in the Dhamma. And when one develops that, then one will develop genuine confidence, appreciation in the 3 jewels. And when that happens, then one will develop genuine devotion. And through devotion, then one receives the blessing. So blessing of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And through that, then one will have swift progress in one's practice of the Dhamma. So for this, and then the shamatha meditation is very important. So try to cultivate that in yourself. And then with that, and then if one reflects on these 4 reminders, and then that is the base of the genuine practice of the Dhamma. Through such, then one will genuinely be able to benefit oneself, and one will be able to genuinely benefit others. So with this, then we end the teaching on the 4 reminders. And now, just knowing about the 4 reminders, or the benefits of the shamatha meditation or practice, so that is not enough. That is then it will just remain in the bookshelf. So it's not of much use. So in order to genuinely be beneficial for oneself and others, then one must try and cultivate in oneself. How do you cultivate? By practicing. So practicing shamatha meditation, by reflecting on these 4 reminders and putting it in one's life. So as I said, trying to put it in one's life, then it will genuinely benefit oneself. So if you just think about them, read about them, it's not going to do much. At the time when you're reading about them, you will be happy, have some kind of understanding, and feel like you understand. But in your day-to-day life out there, when some situations arise, you will not be able to, overcome such situation. You will go back to square one, because you have no practice in you. And so therefore, putting into practice is very important. So if one is able to put into practice, then when you are out there facing such problems, day-to-day life, experiences in day-to-day life, then one will be able to overcome them. One will be able to develop insight into those. One will have wisdom to tackle such situations. So therefore, practice is a must. So practice doesn't mean very complicated things. Practice keeps simple. Simple and something that you can do. Every day, something that you can do genuinely. That is important. So the most simple, the shamatha meditation, very simple. Yet you can do anywhere, every day. So try doing that. And through that you will develop genuine joy in whatever practice you do.
Sunam di Tamji Sikwa Ni Tomni Ni Pe Dranam Tamji